So today we are going to understand all the concepts under understanding the individual behaviors. So I'll make sure I add all the index in the description. So if you want to learn about any specific topic, you can directly go to that. So let's get started. So our first concept is the factors affecting individual behaviors. Okay, so in that first is the personal factors. So in that personal factors, we see all the things that a person learned from his environment, or which he got his from ancestors, or which he learned from his ancestors, his biographical attributes. All those comes under personal factors. Now in environmental factors, you see the environment in which a person had worked, or is working, or is going to work. Everything is going to affect him. That's why we have multiple factors under it. One is the economic factors. So you see, more the good is the state of the economy of the state, more is the confidence in the person, and the vice versa. Okay, so in economic factors, when we are saying the economy of the country is good, the more is the confidence. We have three factors in that. One is the employment level. So if the employment is very less, or it's like very too much work is taken in and less pay is given, so when all those kind of drastic situations are there, there will become comparatively more negative thoughts, less confidence under the person, compared to when a person who worked in a environment where there was a good employment rate or pay scale and encouragement, all those things. Okay, so next is wage rate. So if a person is having less income at his place, he'll be going to some other place, migrating to some other place where he is expecting at least a comparatively better package and all. So there, because of the location difference, we can see the behavior, the efficiency is getting affected. Now finally, the technological development. If a person is more interested, more ambitious to work with the new or latest technology, and if the company's infrastructure of the company environment is not able to provide that, then again the person is going to have impacted on his behavior. Now the final thing is socio-cultural factors. So in the socio-cultural factors, we can see, in this we see it is completely related to socio-cultural environment. For example, which kind of family does a person belongs to, whether it is an educated family, whether the income or the family income is high or low, or what is the environment that he lived so far, he or she lived so far. So all the socio-cultural things are the factors here. Now final is our political factors. This has similar points compared to what we had in economic factors under environmental factors. So in political factors, we can see again the employee level, wage rate, investment options in the country. So all these things which happens at the economic level again. So there is a slight difference between economic and political factors. We can say political factors are kind of subcategory of economic, not actually, but there are some points in common. Okay, so final is our organizational behavior. So how the management is taking care of various scenarios, what are the policies, what are the infrastructure, physical facilities. Okay, how the reporting goes on, how the encouragement is provided, what is the reward system. So everything which happens in the organization is indirectly affecting the individual, so we call it as an organizational behavior. Okay, now let's get on to the next topic, which is our biographical attributes. So the attributes of a person which are either inherited or generic in nature, those kind of attributes, we call it as a biographic. So physical character. So in this we have our weight, skin, height, shape, eyesight, everything, the texture, the color, everything comes under the physical characters. Now next is age. So in age, it is like again we want to have a different age set of people in an organization. So age is one of that factor which helps in identifying or differentiating a groups and while recruiting. So the stereotype behind this is young people are more energetic, which in some of the ways is correct. So they go for the energetic people, but in some of the cases they want the experienced people because they are not in hurry, but the work they want was to be perfect. So age is one such. And next is gender. So there is some kind of gender bias happening, but not across the country. But to make sure that they give equal rights to all of them, the focus is kept on gender, that all the females are there in all the positions of the company. Now next is religion. So again this has something to do with the ethnicity. So this factor is mainly considered based on the profession. So for example, take MNC, they don't care what is the ethnicity or what is the religion. it's only about what is the talent. But again, when we are talking about globalization and expanding, we want that the specific culture people should be there for working. So at that time religion come into picture. Next is the martial status. So it is like married people, if they take some decision, that will be a long term decision compared to the one who is a bachelor. So again, which factor to consider at what point is depend on the action that you are performing, for which profession or for which post are we recruiting. Okay, now next is the experience. So again, there is one more concept behind this, that experienced people are more confident, positive towards the work compared to the inexperienced or the freshers who know what the work is, but still because they are new to the environment compared to the experienced people, they will be having very less confident. Okay, next is the intelligence. So in intelligence, it's not about how much he knows so far, it's about if we ask something to new to learn, how fast he or she can learn and identify new things, and if there is any task going on, how what is the creative way of performing, what is the way that could reduce the time. So intelligence is not about how much he or she knows, but how fast or new kind of things he or she can come up with. Now the next concept is our ability. Okay, now coming to ability, now one liner explanation for the ability, we can say it is a capacity of a person. So this capacity is categorized in two ways: intellectual ability and physical ability. Okay, so I think those numbers are those terms are self-suggested or self-explanatory. Number aptitude, who is good at performing arithmetic. Then verbal comprehension, who is able to understand or interpret any kind of meanings and can reply accordingly. Perceptual, we are given different sort of images during various aptitude exams, so in that we are asked to find the differences in the images. So it's again how the perception of a person is when he is comparing the first image and the second image. So more is the clarity on it, more quickly he or she can identify the similarities and differences. Inductive reasoning, so when we have a certain big solution to determine, okay, to determine the logical sequence of a solution. So basically the solution is divided in parts, or we can say the problem is divided in parts and corresponding solution is written, and then when solution is written for each parts, we try to form a logical connection, and if we are not able to form, means there is something somewhere some logic is missing, so that part of the solution is focused. So that is how, like, it is kind of a divide and conquer thing. Okay, next is the deductive reasoning. So this completely based on facts. So if the first fact is true and the second fact is true, and the first and second fact are like originating and ending at the point where we can say, okay, so because first fact happened and the second fact happened, the third thing, which is not a fact, must and should have happened. So this is how the deducing of the complete logic happens, and finally we come up with a new conclusion. Now spatial reasoning is, you must have seen a cubicle or something of that sort, which we are giving initially, and then we are asked to say if this is rotated in this way or some other way or in some other degrees, what could be the positioning. So this spatial reasoning is required in a profession where we have designing, architecture, those kind of things. Now next is a memory. So it is simply ability to retain or recall. This is not with respect to the skills he had, but this is kind of inheritance or the practice that he is doing to retain. Okay, so that was about intellectual ability. Now next, coming to physical ability. Here first is dynamic strength. So it is like when we are going on a mountain, we have to pet the cycle with a different energy. When we are going on the slope downward, then it is a different. So that strength that is generated dynamically based on the environment or scenario or situation we are in, that is called dynamic strength. And next, the trunk strength. So in the dynamic strength, for suppose we talked about the leg muscles while pedaling, but in the trunk strength it is specific, because in dynamic strength we are like it should be a muscular force, that's it. But trunk is like your hand should be involved, your bicep muscle should be involved from performing any action, like having a big cylinder holding and you are bringing it from bottom to top. So dynamic strength, when talked in specific to our biceps muscle, that is called as trunk strength. And next is static strength. So static strength is like when you are forcing anything which is not moving and which is at stagnant at a common place. So the force that is generated when hitting or while trying to move any static object, there comes static strength. So static itself means okay, something is stopped at a particular level. Okay, next is explosive strength. So for explosive strength, we can take an example of a boxer hitting it again and again, the jumping bag or an opponent. So explosive strength means when we try to continue our force of action again and again until the aim is achieved. So that is explosive strength. So if you are getting confused just with the pull-ups or push-ups, so that is not the explosive strength. In explosive strength, we make sure that our force is getting out of our body. Next is the extent flexibility. So in extent flexibility, we can say it is a similar a subcategory of a trunk strength, the second point. So extent flexibility is like we are not only using our biceps muscle to pull something up, but also we are bending our other muscles as well. Like we can say when we try to keep some of our luggages on the top shelf, we bend and then we bend, so there is a flexibility in muscles. Then we try to use our trunk strength to use our biceps muscle to pull to lift the luggage. So that is the combination of trunk strength and the flexibility of muscles, which comes under the extended flexibility. Now the dynamic flexibility is like how continuously we make sure that the movement that we had in sync previously, for how long we are going to have that. So for example, we can take it as a swimming. So repeatedly we are doing. Now if you see, the dynamic flexibility and the explosive strength is somewhat conflicting, but try to see that explosive strength is making sure that the force is coming out, but dynamic flexibility, it's not restricted like that, but for sure we have to continuously be in that movement which we are doing so far. So there we don't have any restriction of having our force to come outside, which is the explosive one. Next is the body coordination. So we are having our hand movement, we are having our leg movement, we are having our head movement. So multiple movements when you want to be in coordination, that is body coordination. So best example for this is the swimming. Now next is the ability to continue maximum effort. No, so this I forgot to mention the name. So this is stamina. So stamina is like when we are running, so we continue to have that effort for a long time. So the duration for which we can have that effort going on continuously, that is called stamina. So next is the balance. So it is the ability to maintain equilibrium. For example, we can take in circus, a joker is trying to balance the ball in his nose. So he is trying to avoid the external forces movement of his other parts with the help of body coordination, and then he is trying to focus his concentration on the ball which is on nose. So that is our balance. So all this physical ability and intellectual ability are the two subcategories, which is nothing but the capacity of a person or the ability of a person. Now our next topic is ability job fit. So based on the previous two categories, that is physical and intellectual, while hiring or while choosing a person for any specific profession, we try to consider all those. For example, I've given if we want to hire an accountant, we want to make sure that the person is good at it, maths and is experienced. But the first priority is the numbers. Okay, now the second is dancer. For dancer, we want the person to be more flexible, so we go with the flexibility. So here if we see in our physical ability, again we are not concentrating on only stamina, but we want the dynamic flexibility, extended flexibility, and some part of explosive strength as well, because there will be a form of dance called break dance. So in that we want some pushing to be done in forward and movement in backward. So there again we are giving force out of the body. So based on the requirement, the form, the art, we consider various abilities. Similarly for soldier, we want the more explosive strength, reasoning and body coordination. Now coming to values. So this is a very simple concept. Once we understand that, we can map any, you can take any value and we can map whether it is a terminal value or instrument value. Okay, so values are nothing but something which we inherit from our parents, or which we, it's not like we learn a new concept so we learned a new value. It's nothing like that. So that's why the emphasis is done that it is inherited and then we can see for a long time if you are going in any environment, that will also inherit some, or that will also, what we can say, provide us with some of the new values. So based on the survey called RPS Rokesh Value Survey, we are considering values into two categories, that is terminal values and instrumental values. So terminal values are the we can say the final goals that we want to have. Okay, so it is an end state value, and instrumental values are the values which help us to reach the terminal values. For example, if we can say terminal value is my goal is to become an HR or IAS. Okay, but to reach to that goal we are making sure that we, like, the values which are making us to come towards the terminal values are the instrument values. So it's like our honesty, our hard work nature, so those kind of things comes under instrumental values. But here we can see instrumental values are the values which are very hard to change because it is our inherited values. Okay, but terminal values are our kind of goals for which we are aspiring. But so we can say the terminal values is not which is there inside our brain, inside our it is not inherited, so terminal values can change, but instrumental values it doesn't change. Okay, so that was all about values. So when any value can be given, we can easily map whether that is an end state value or an instrumental value. For example, take OCD. Okay, so that level of cleanliness does not comes under our terminal, it will be like something inherited, so that we can say as instrument values. Then imagination, our intellect, our logical ability, or other abilities apart from the physical abilities which make sure that we are considering bodybuilding. So the value we take, and then we can map it whether it is a flexible thing or whether it is a permanent thing. Okay, so for suppose you take a happiness or sad movement, okay, a comfortable life, okay, and the national security, a specific policy. So all this will coming under the terminal values because it can change according to the time. Okay, now next topic is the type of generation. So here we have six generation. The builder generation, that is the generation that was born in 1945 or below. Okay, so the generation which faced the World War II, so they know so these are the people which know the most the value of life. Okay, and the next we have the baby boomers, 1946 to 1964, that is people born after the World War II. So for them, at that time what was happening, because the World War II was done, so many countries were facing the economic crisis, so they were trying to have much more investment, and focus towards the money was more. So the people born in this era were like people who are starting a new life completely, and so they were more concerned towards the money. Next, the X generation, 1965 to 1980. So at this time still the economic crisis, work was going on, but it was not recovered. So people born in this duration were completely like, what is the materialistic position I am holding, what is the materialistic relationship I am having. So in that generation there was like most of the show off kind of thing was happening. Okay, now the next, so my bad, that is not the fourth point. So the meaningful relation, team orientation, latchkey kids means both the parents are working in that duration. So this latchkey kids and two parent income is a part of X generation, that is not a separate generation. So after the X generation we have something called Y generation. So this generation I am belonging to. So this is the time when the internet was getting started. So we can say the digital natives means the people who were born were at the very same duration when the internet was born. So we can say internet and the people born in this duration were going hand to hand. So in this time there was no such thing that we need to focus on the on finding money for eating or living, or the basic thing, because that is already provided by the X generation. So in the fifth point, that is Y generation, we are more towards the financial success, doing multiple jobs, trying to achieve what we want rather than how to sustain. Okay, so that was Y generation. Now the next is the G generation. So in this generation, people who are born after 2000 are the G generation. So here we can see the internet was already into its matured state. So people who are born with Z generation, for them this was everything. So they can't compare to the situation where the internet was not there. So these people are completely into technologies, so that's why we call them as technoholic. You can see the X generation when the internet was not there, but the Y generation when internet started. So the people of X generation are getting into the era where the internet was starting. So we can say digital immigrants. The X generation was the digital immigrants, and the Y generations were digital natives born with the internet. The Z generation are the technoholics who are born after the internet got into a matured state. So that was our 5 generations. And next is our attitude. So attitude is defined as how one behaves in the given scenario. So based on the study, the attitude is made out of 3 components, that is cognitive component, affective component, and behavior component. So we will see what is cognitive component. So the part of the attitude which is completely driven by the intelligence, experience, evaluated past thought. So when taking decision using a cognitive component, we use these factors: our intelligence, our experience, our past thoughts. Like we got failed in one exam, now we prepared something and we came across a new paper, but in this again the same questions came. So that was just a dumb example, but yeah. So the intelligence part is the cognitive component. Next is the affective component. So this completely made up of emotions. So that's it. So attitude, if it is driven by the emotions, we can say it is affected by the affective component. Next is our behavior component. So based on the environment in which we are sitting at a time is affecting our behavior. So if we are doing some work at office, the way we behave is different. If the same work we are doing at home, the way we behave is different. So that was about the attitude, how one responds to any scenario, how the stimulus of a person acts for any scenario. So that is attitude. Now next is the job attitude. So in this job attitudes, we can see there are 3 different types. Now these are not components, these are different types of attitudes. So first is the job satisfaction. So when our needs are taken by the company, it is like, okay, company is taking care of me, so I should also take care of it. And if it is providing rewards, incentives based on the work that is provided, there is no politics. So all these kind of things provides job satisfactions, which again indirectly affects the efficiency. And the second type of job attitude is job involvement. So if there is any a new task or new project is coming in and you are involved in the decision making, so you see there is a sense of ownership, so you feel more to work and complete and provide it to the client. But if you are simply given a task and asked to perform, then the mood, the efficiency, the interest that you have to work in the same project will be different. So the more the involvement of a person is made in any project or in any task, the more is a sense of ownership, and he or she will be trying to perform it. Next is the organizational commitments. Okay, so this is categorized in the 3 commitments. So here we can see what are the commitments which affects the attitude of a person, and his intention is to stay with the organization. The first is the affective commitment. So if you can see in the attitude, previously we studied that affective component is the part of emotion. So in the organization commitment, if you are coming across the affective commitment, means it has something to do with the emotions. So for example, the person who is taking care of the project has helped me previously, so I will be emotionally attached with the project owner to help him in any way to get the project done in a very efficient or a good manner. So that was just an example, but here the emotion term is coming and playing a role for completing a task or project of an organization. Next is the normative commitment. So in this we can see the person is not forced to do any such thing, but because of his ethical or moral values, if we are going and joining any organization, we wish to do certain things not because of any money purpose or anything, but because of our values, because of our attitudes, because of our interest to help someone, like a person is going and voluntarily joining an NGO. Okay, next is the continuous commitment. So here we can see there are factors which force the employee to continue with the organization rather than leaving it. Maybe we can see the brand of the company, the package of the company, the environment of the company. Okay, so these are the organizational factors which affects an individual's attitude. Okay, so overall these 3 were the job attitudes. So if you have any queries regarding, I'll make sure I'll add this URL in the description. But if you have any queries in understanding individual behaviors concepts, please let me know in the comment section. Thank you.